lot of really important information there. The president starting out by saying they're putting forward these guidelines in order to stop the spread over the next 15 days. This includes telling people they should avoid travel, school from home, avoid bars and restaurants, avoid getting together in groups of 10 or more, saying they're not considering a national curfew right now, but they could consider it in hot spots, and looking to expand paid sick leave for companies with more than 500 employees. But again, a very sober and somber answering questions and saying this is what we should do as Americans, take personal responsibility, what you can do over the next 15 days in order to help the rest of the country contain this. I am Melissa Francis.
And I'm Connell McShane. Welcome, everybody, to After the Bell. The other item I'd add to that is on timeline, the president talked about the worst of the outbreak possibly being over by July or August. So that, was something that caught a lot of people's attention when John Roberts asked him about that. Anyway, we welcome you to After the Bell. Look at the market today, and we point out that even the two of us practicing kind of what we preach are in two different studios, both here in New York.
Hey,
with the whole, hey there, social distancing thing that's going on here. And we were down nearly 3,000 points on the Dow. There's only been one day in the history of the Dow Jones Industrial Average when we've had a bigger decline, and it was October the 19th of 1987. That's where we are. So we'll cover it all. Fox Business team coverage with Christina Partsenevelos on the floor downtown. Phil Flynn watching oil in Chicago. No floor for him to go to today. Hillary Vaughn at the White House. And our colleague Blake Berman was inside in the briefing. Hillary outside on the North Lawn. And Hillary, we start with you.
Connell, really social distancing was the message that we heard from the coronavirus task force at the White House just moments ago. They issued new community guidelines. Today, they're now saying they urge people not to gather in groups of 10 or more. That's a change of tune just from last night when the CDC urged people not to gather in groups of 50 or more. So that is an extreme step today. They're also asking people not to eat at bars and restaurants, not to go on shopping trips, to restrict discretionary travel. This is the guidelines for the next 15 days. This task force will then review those guidelines and see if they need to crack down even further or they can ease up from there. The president and Dr. Fauci saying today this is not about overreacting, but being prepared.
We've made the decision to further toughen the guidelines and blunt the infection now. We'd much rather be ahead of the curve than behind it, and that's what we are.
It isn't an overreaction. It's a reaction that we feel is commensurate, which is actually going on in reality. So take a look at the guidelines, read them carefully, and we hope that the people of the United States will take them very seriously, because they will fail if people don't adhere to them. We have to have, as a whole country, cooperate and collaborate.
The president says they do have a vaccine candidate in phase 1 of a trial. They're also working on antiviral therapies. They have those in the works. The president saying today he thinks the best thing he could do for the stock market reaction to the coronavirus so far is really to solve this virus and stop the virus from spreading even further and getting out of control. He did say that he would back up certain industries like the airlines.
Well, it may be. We're not thinking in terms of recession. We're thinking in terms of the virus. Once we stop, I think there's a tremendous pent-up demand, both in terms of the stock market and in terms of the economy. And once this goes away, once it goes through and we're done with it, I think you're going to see a tremendous surge.
And Connell, the president also said today he did talk with governors around the country, and he said the reason why he's urging states to work on getting their own ventilators, their own respirators, and their own masks is because they can work with their existing supply chains faster than the federal government can react. But he does say they on their own are also working on stockpiling and gathering those additional resources for them. Connell?
A big issue. A lot of people are watching. Hillary, thanks. Christina Partsenevelos, meantime, on how traders have reacted to all this on a day in which the Dow fell nearly 3,000 points. Christina.
Well, most of the traders were here on the floor. They came in very calm if we're talking about the mood, but you saw that sell-off despite the monetary stimulus coming from the Federal Reserve just 24 hours ago. If we're talking about all of the markets, you had the circuit breaker that was enacted early this morning, the third one in less than 2 weeks, and that's because the S&P dropped more than 7% just within, the first 9:30 a.m. open. Overall, we are seeing the Nasdaq have the worst day in history. The S&P 500 as well as the Dow had the worst I should say percentage drop, the biggest percentage drop since 1987. So you're seeing on your screen there, the Dow down almost 3,000 points in just one day. If we take a look at some of the sectors, the worst performing sectors on the S&P 500, financials, that has to do with the fact that interest rates are so low. You have energy, crude fell quite a bit today around, we're going to bring that up on the screen. The last I checked, it was 28.70. That's for WTI, West Texas Instrument. And then last but not least, VIX, and that's another barometer. It's the fear gauge for a lot of traders over here. The fact that it did close at 82. The last time we had an intraday high for the VIX, which measures what investors think the volatility will be in the markets in the next 30 days, that high was at 89, and that was back in 2008 during the financial recession. So we're not that far off of it. And then one final story that we're getting just within the last 15 minutes of the trading day, that was Amazon. Amazon early in the day said that they were facing more out of stock household supplies, but they did announce, and this is according to the Dow Jones, that they're hiring an additional 100,000 workers for their warehouse as well as delivery services to help with all of those people ordering stuff online. So I'll throw it back to you, floor of the New York Stock Exchange floor.
Okay.
All right, Christina. Wow. What a